So this is how bad I am with technology. That what I am doing at this moment is sitting and holding a tablet where I can look into the back of it, so that we can do a video. This is no camera crew, no professional help. This is just yours truly sitting here doing a little Ascension video. So. Don't really want to be too, in your face with it. So I know you didn't tune in to look at me. So we're going to get right to it. But basically, just got back from Gen Con, and I've been spending a lot of time before that doing a lot of practicing, getting ready for the tournament and such. The tournament didn't go quite as I hoped. I had, a decent showing, but anyway, it was a fun event, and it was always good to see, people that I've seen there several years and meet lots of new people. So just a blast as always at Gen Con. But what I've had in mind and been thinking about and working on here is something a little bit more, goofing off, or at least, trying something different with Ascension. And I've got a cube. Those of you that have from maybe some Magic background familiar with that concept, but basically just have a collection of cards here. Without further ado, let's get to that. The concept here is that this cube involves cards that cost 3 runes and less mostly. I did throw in some 4-cost cards. Nothing any higher than that. So I'm wanting to test out and see, just how different the game feels, when the center row comes out and you are faced with lots of cards that you can buy right away. No shortage of cards that you can buy right away, and a center row that kind of keeps moving rather quickly. There's some very efficient monster kill and things like that, so that things should flow pretty smoothly, albeit maybe with slightly less powerful cards. At least in the traditional context. Like, I don't think that what we're doing here is going to be comboing out and drawing 20-25 cards during a turn and gaining like 80, 90, 100 and something honor on our last turn, something ridiculous like that. Although there is certainly some potential for abuse with the card draw that does exist, and the life bounds and things like that. But we'll just dive into it, and I'll kind of get a rundown of just my thoughts on it so far. It has not been played yet, and I'm hoping to do a video shortly, which will showcase this cube. But this is just the absolute initial setting, or, the initial configuration here. And I've gone through every set and kind of dug through the boxes and just picked out cards that I thought were appropriate. Of course, couldn't use every 1 and 2 cost card. I had to be very careful with the 4 cost cards that I use, because I really want the game to flow quickly, the decks to kind of fill with lots of cards right away, so that you're not stuck drawing apprentices and things, but you're stuck drawing these other cheaper cards. Starting out with the Enlightened, because, blue, always. At the very bottom here, we've got the 1 costs, looking at Mantra of Renewal, and this is a card that I think, and I'm going to kind of talk about just the context and maybe what changes. Cards like this are really going to improve in this format, I think, because you're going to be able to buy a large mass of Enlightened cards quickly, because you'll go through the center row quickly. You may not be just a solid Enlightened deck, but the Enlightened synergies that you need are probably going to be easier to come by. So this is a card that probably helps you draw, pretty consistently once you have it. Piercing Eye, there's a lot of 3-cost monsters, and you're going through the center row quickly, so it's a card that's probably going to be pretty efficient as well. Sacred Pot, has its own limitations. It requires Serenity, so, probably isn't going to draw a card every turn, but there's probably instances for that as well. Of course, I won't be able to go through every card, and we're going to try to do this pretty quickly because, you probably don't really want to hear me go on and on about every single card, and you guys know what these cards do. So, But I did pick out the ones that, I just feel like are, cards that you would just intuitively want to have. Ephemeral Monk is something that, is pretty great to buy on turn one, especially you're buying a couple other cards to go with it. Great stuff, draw it faster. Hectic Scribe, dig you to all your cool stuff. Prodigal, probably going to be a little overpowered in this format because most of the monsters cost 3. Our Initiate's just sort of there, as it usually is. Got 2 Disciple of Ozaya, and concerned that might be even more ridiculous because it literally, once transformed, will just kill every monster that could possibly pop out. For that reason, when we look at like the 4-cost Enlightens up here, I have 1 Templar, Thunder Templar. I have no other Enlightened heroes that just kill a monster because those are kind of inefficient when compared to like Prodigal and Disciple of Ozaya. So, looking at the 2 cost, got Seer of the Forked Path. Interested to see how a card like that's going to fare, like Cinderow Banishing and even Deck Banishing. I'm wondering if it will be less important maybe in a set where everything is just so cheap and you can dig through the Cinderow so quickly anyway. No Count, good solid card. Shrine Attendant I like because I feel like in a way this set is more more balanced on putting lots of resources in your deck quickly than it is on maybe banishing through your deck to draw your more powerful stuff. So Shrine Attendant just helps you to pile up more resources more quickly. Medium is, it's medium. So Temple Librarian, just a good staple. And then I threw in, some Cinderow Banishing here, some card draw with the Skeptic. Searing Ascara is a card, and Aegis Knight, but it's a card that I picked over, like, say, we took out the, I can't think of the name of the card right now, but the original card that basically was Aegis Knight. Only Aegis Knight is slightly better as it hits your discard pile, so I picked the more powerful version there. Searing Ascara is probably a little more powerful here than it would be in a normal set of Ascension cards because it acquires, a very high percentage of the cards that can possibly come out. Reality Sculptor, similarly, will be a card that, can copy almost any hero that you could buy. So I didn't put things like the 4-cost one that just copies a hero, Twofold Ascara, because Reality Sculptor basically is that card at this point. I went with Journeyman Sage, and against my nature, I left out the Sage of Lucid Dreams. It's probably somewhat known amongst some of you that I'm definitely into sort of combo card draw sort of decks, but I did try to just pick the cards that I felt like would go for sort of quick, efficient, like honor grinding sort of games of Ascension for this cube. So not a card that's just going to combo out. So didn't get the Sage of Lucid Dreams. It's effectively banned here. Other good solid 4-cost cards, obviously. I think Forgotten Scripture is along the lines of the mantra of renewal that, it will be better in this setup than it would be normally because you can buy more of that faction. Going back down to, we have the Lifebound guys here. That's the faction I'm worried about. I think, well, it's not the only faction I'm worried about, but Everbloom, sure, War Tree, these are just cheap constructs. There are cards like Makana cards that go on like construct synergies and things like that. So I wanted to include plenty of constructs, and those are just fine honor, solid constructs. Obviously, we're not going to have like Eye of Destiny or something powerful like that in here, so we got Ogo War Tree instead to kind of fill that role. What I'm worried about is cards like Everbloom Witch and Sirewood Elder and Granger. For a while, I had it's Spider Witch, I think, the 3-cost one that gives you a Soul Gem when it unites. I cut all the cards that involved Soul Gems. 99.9% of the cards that involved energy or insight. We're not doing fanatics or events or anything like that. This is mainly base rules stuff, like stuff that you can just center row, pretty much explains it all. But I am concerned about the Unite that does exist. I think it's going to be pretty powerful, like Everbloom Click, going with the Everbloom Wedge, being able to buy the guide, looking at the cheaper constructs, which are over here, the Lifebound constructs. The Windbark Mail should be very efficient. Flytrap Staff should be very efficient. Pathfinder Totem will be very efficient. Delirium Nymph. Disciple of Cetra, Wolf Acolyte. There are those cards that unite. Well, you can look at all these one-cost cards I included, and I am concerned that Unite will be too easy, and that will be too powerful, and that we'll have to adjust the cube a little bit from the Lifebound part of it to make it a little less busted. Because, you shouldn't just win the game by just buying Delirium Nymph on turn 1 and Flytrap Staff, but I am concerned that'll be just very strong. Decks may be very strong very quickly, which is the goal, as long as one player just doesn't get out of control. Hopefully the fact that all of the cards are cheap and that both players will have a crack at it pretty quickly, or 4 players if you go all 4, hopefully it'll balance out, but we'll see. So, obviously with Void, as you would expect, testing out some Banishing, lots and lots of it. Deathsworn Warriors, Disciple of Emry, Void Initiate, even Madness Embrace. I don't think Beacon of the Lost actually does that, but it adds a power, and that's a lot for a one-cost card. So it's there, and then we go back into Banishing with Abolish or Dogs of War, and then just some efficient beatdown cards, which I was concerned because of Prodigal, but I think that the Void cards are going to be fine. I think being able to basically kill a monster with any one Void card means that this huge pile of monsters that I have sitting over here, and it is huge, there are a lot of them, you can go through them pretty quickly because, every time you buy a monster killing card, you're going to be able to kill a monster. Pretty much, if that makes sense. I do have Shadow Star here, and I have Oblivion Blossoms, which is the better Shadow Star, and we may look at narrowing it down to just the Blossoms. I'm not sure about constructs that give power in this format. They feel a little bit underpowered. So, I didn't put in, the Lifebound ones that cost 4. None of those are in. Shadow Stalker, Shades, more Banished there. Then we got one Arbiter of the Precipice. I don't think it's as powerful in this kind of a setup as it would be when in a set where the cards cost more. I think Soul Assassin's probably fine, and Initiate's Gauntlets we're going to see. The rare exception, I guess, to the no 4-cost power constructs rule. So, looking here at the Makana cards... let's finish up, actually, I guess, with... I've gone through the Void cards, but I think I did miss some of the Lifebounds, and want to just... A quick look here. I do have a few of these 4-cost Lifebound cards. And following along with what I was discussing, where, Dandelion Witch is really something that, probably is sort of dangerous when you have, multiple cheap Lifebound heroes. It's another card to be concerned about. Threw in some... Tusk Rider, obviously great. Threw in a promo, Ogo Tracker. Seems like a pretty efficient card. Gives you a rune even if there's a Lifebound hero in your discard pile as well. So you get 3 for it. So you can buy a lot of stuff in this cube with an Ogo Tracker or an Animus of the Wild. I mentioned Energy, and that there will be no shards, because we're not doing an energy theme. But... we do have Michelle, Star Oracle, which gives 1 energy. This is the only way in the entire cube, unless I've missed something, to get energy. Now, that's going to come in later. That's just one of the neat little kind of idiosyncrasies that I think it has right now that I think is kind of cool. Just a thing to know about it that makes me chuckle. But we're not there yet. and it'll come back up, like I said. So, so we're done with the life bounds and looking at the Makana cards. So obviously we picked, cheap constructs and cheap heroes. So just, fitting with the theme. Borrower's Mark, Synchronizer, Clockwork Shield. These are all cards that kind of build on when you play a Makana. These things happen. And obviously if you can buy a lot of cheap Makanas, because there's not a lot of big things in the way, you can kind of snowball these things pretty quickly. And I think that's one of the things I'm really excited to see with this cube is just, how much that does, how out of control the Makanas do get and the other constructs. I'm envisioning games with lots and lots of constructs on both sides and both players playing tons of unique heroes throughout the game. But I think Makana is a good example of that because you just don't usually get to see that, like all these triggers on different Makana too often because they usually cost so much. Even if you get one or two cheap ones in a set, you don't get all these cheap ones like we have here. So that being said, it makes Processing Hub a little better. Defense Generator is definitely going to be better than it usually would. Probably going to be a pretty reliable source of power. Core of the Ferromancer, the aforementioned, multiple construct synergy. Even a Brother Marius. I mean, this is a card that is just, absolutely hilarious. Probably nobody remembers, and I'm sorry, I'm bad at pointing and also operating the camera. So, but this is a card that just didn't get the love that it deserved in the set that it was in because it just wasn't that good. But if you got a bunch of cheap constructs of each faction, then there you go. This card could be a powerhouse. So it's in there, making lots of runes, being cool. Overhaul Cleric, similarly, should be powerful. Matron of Discovery is always good. Scrapbot Scrapper is very good in the context of the recent set. And even better here, I think. Getting to use my Project Beta promo. Couple of Elemental Projectors, because those are going to be ridiculous here. And Workshop Gargoyle to round those out. So, I'm not usually a big Makana player, but, seriously, no lie, I'm pretty excited about the Makana in this thing. So, Solar Sentry is just a more efficient Mystic. Scrap Weaver and Brazier Drone, I think, definitely improve in the context of what we're doing here because all the constructs are so cheap. So, you can afford to buy them, therefore you can afford to put them directly into play or to pick them up with the Brazier Drone that you probably won't have to spend very often to buy them. So, excited to see those cards in action here. Battery Monk should be fine, but not necessarily better, just fine. Right, so now we're moving on to the monsters. So, and by now that we're using the cheap ones, so there they are, every single one of them. All the one costs that made sense. Got Cavern Creeper, got Gnome Tribe Gremlin. I've got, I actually enjoy the whole, putting monsters in your opponent's deck kind of theme. And I think it's going to be fun, here, because you're just buying so many cheap cards. You're not going to draw them that often. But it's just another part of it. A little more interaction. Makes it a little more fun. Got some Foundation Burrowers, Cavern Horror, so you can shuffle your discard pile, if you need to do that, which you might. Phase Fiend to Banish, Rest Gremlin. Of course, some Yuck Tribe guys, which we do, as mentioned previously, we do have the Yuck Tribe Outcast, so we do have that synergy. But again, bearing in mind that if you acquire a card for free with the Yuck Tribe Outcast, then, it's not going to be, you're not going to get, Cetra or something like that. You're looking for something huge out of this cube, which is I don't know, Void Speaker, right? That's the biggest, that you're really going to come up with. So it's not as busted, when it goes off, I guess, is the point I'm making here. So, Sorted Asp, Ravenous Gorf, because I don't usually love the Gorf, but like in this thing, like we're kind of doing it, like we're trying to dig through the deck as quick as possible, trying to keep the center row moving, and hey, that's what that guy does. It's a casual format anyway. Let's add some chaos, right? Hoarding Whelp, Corrupted Sage, basically any monster you can think of that draws a card, it's in there. There's Bam Tribe kind of hiding in there, Thieving Griffins, Pups and Tormented Souls, they draw cards. Now the Demon Pups, you can pay an insight to draw an additional card, but good luck on getting that. That's not happening in this cube. It's just a Tormented Soul, unless I've missed something yet again. We got Sower Discontent, Borderland Nihilist, Shardwing Beetle, which, Deathfinder, Lagoon Troll, more card draw. Why not? Got all the monsters that kind of banish stuff out of the center row with Mephit, Fettered Soul, and the other cheap ones that you would expect. Tidestalker, Cackling Jackal's good. I did cut things like the one that just gives a rune and an honor when you kill it. I had to cut a couple monsters, so those got the hack. A lot of 4 costs kind of that I wanted to put in got cut, and in fact, I think that Death's Widow is probably one that I actually intended to cut because it's just not, we'll see. It's sort of conditional. Like, it could be a card draw, it could be a construct kill. I don't think construct kill is going to be very powerful in this because of just how many constructs players will have. Mistake of Creation. Doomweeper might be a little bit below the power curve here. Bleak Toad, again, and Mammoth Beetle, you will have an incredibly hard time finding the insight to kill those. And since I'm the one creator, I guess I developed the rules for how this cube is played, and the second player will not be getting an insight, just for the record. I don't think we'll need that to balance this cube out, though it would be an interesting twist. Firestorm Effigy is the card that, here's our combo. So, you can energize this, right? And that's hard to do, but it's not impossible. So like I said, this would come back around, so we've gotten to it. So there it is. There's a one of, 1 Michelle, and 1 Firestorm Effigy. So, if you energize something, that's going to be how it's done. It's Michelle and Effigy. So I just think that's, and like I said, I'd already kind of had that hard and fast rule, no more than 1 copy of a card that costs more than 3. So it wasn't like I did that just intentionally. I wanted to put the Michelle in the deck, and I wanted to put cool monsters that banish stuff, and Firestorm Effigy fit that description, and so there it is. I didn't cut it because I think it's fine. If something gets energized one time, it'll be entertaining, and in a 200 and something card deck that combo came together. Sorry that I've kind of rambled and sort of missed some things and had to backtrack because we're there again now. We did miss the 4-cost Makana constructs, and I know I've probably scanned over them a million times and you guys have already seen them, but we'll go through them real quick. I love Spire of Insight because, again, the cheap constructs, lots of card draw going on there. We've got Secluded Lab should be easier to transform. Inferno Templar, because of the construct synergies, should be easier to get going. Energy Monk probably won't make the deck, really, because of the Scrap Heap Scroungers that are just more efficient. But it's there for now. Deep Drone maybe similarly won't make the deck. It's a matter of maybe cutting some life bounds and enlightens to even it out too, though. Avatar Golem should be easy to turn on because of all the cheap constructs. 9 should be more efficient here than it would be in most situations because, picking it up is more game breaking because it actually buys a couple cards most of the time here. Got some hybrid stuff. Got Guide to Lost Souls. And Wild Gear Druid. Clockwork Sentry is probably going to be really strong. Kind of worried about that card as well, being a little bit strong because of how cheap the constructs are. And then Root Scryer just to kind of round out some synergies. Wild Gear Sower and Muse of Rebirth. So I think that pretty much covers it. it's been through, I've done some changing and manipulating already, but I'll probably do a lot more once it gets played. So looking forward to that. I should hopefully have a video of that, just as soon as possible. Still trying to round up a couple of my friends to have some time to get together and actually do this, because I feel it's probably not fair for me to be competing in the game. I'd like to have a couple of people play against each other that have just have a very basic understanding of it that I gave to them. A simple explanation of the cube, so that they can kind of discover this stuff themselves, and just see what they think. So hopefully this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm already really excited to see it in action, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and I hope that we'll have some more fun with this together coming up soon. So thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.